You've probably heard these terms thrown around a lot, right? Scarcity mindset versus abundance mindset. It's usually painted as this simple choice. You can either be a pessimist or an optimist. But is it really that simple? Well, in this explainer, we're going to dive in and break down what these mindsets actually are, see how they can physically change our brains, and then we're going to question that simple story we're always told.
I mean, this quote from Lynn Twist just hits home, doesn't it? The idea that before your feet even hit the floor in the morning, you're already feeling behind, already feeling like you're lacking something. This feeling of not enough, well, that is the absolute heart of a scarcity mindset. It's not some abstract theory. It's a real feeling that can set the tone for your entire day.
All right, so let's get really clear on what we're talking about here. These mindsets, they're more than just a passing mood. They're the fundamental lenses we use to see pretty much everything. Our time, our money, our relationships, our opportunities. So, the scarcity mindset, it basically operates on a zero-sum game. The classic analogy, and it's a good one, is that there's only one pie. If you get a big piece, that means there's less for me. If your company gets the contract, my company loses. It's a worldview built entirely on limits, on competition, and this constant nagging fear that there just isn't enough to go around. The abundance mindset, on the other hand, just flips that whole idea on its head. It's the belief that the pie isn't a fixed size. You know what? We can just bake more pies. It's a way of seeing the world as being rich with opportunity, with chances for collaboration and shared value. Someone else's success doesn't take away from you. In fact, it can actually open up new doors for everyone. And this is where it gets really interesting, because this stuff goes deep. It's not just a thought in your head, it's a full-body experience. Look at this table. Under physical energy, you can see how scarcity leads to this contracted, tense state, while abundance is more relaxed, more expansive. And the same thing happens with our mental state. Scarcity literally narrows our thinking and makes us feel trapped. Abundance opens up clarity and flexibility. How we think literally changes how we hold ourselves. Okay, so we can see the psychological differences, and even the physical ones. But does this feeling of scarcity actually change the hardware? Let's take a look at what's really happening inside our skulls. This is the big question, isn't it? I mean, we all feel stressed when a deadline is coming up or money is tight. But does that stress physically change the way our brain operates and makes decisions? Well, the science on this is absolutely fascinating. So to find out, a group of researchers back in 2019 designed this really clever experiment using fMRI scans. This tech basically allowed them to watch people's brains in real time as they made decisions while feeling either scarce or abundant. So here is how they did it. People in the study played a game where they had to keep a positive balance of tokens. Now, some people started with only one token. They were constantly on the edge of going broke. That's the scarcity group. Others started with 10 tokens, a nice, comfortable cushion. That's the abundance group. Then, while they were in that state, they were asked to bid on simple things like food items. And the results were just striking. When people felt scarce, their brains lit up in a place called the orbitofrontal cortex. Think of this as the part of the brain that's constantly asking, what is this worth to me right now? It's all about immediate value. But under abundance, a totally different area fired up, the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex. This is like the brain's CEO, the part that's involved in long-term goals and strategic planning. So scarcity literally shifts our brain's focus from future planning to immediate survival. And get this, here's the real kicker from the study. This brain shift was most dramatic, most powerful in people who went from the abundant state, having those 10 tokens, down to the scarce state of having just one. It's the drop. It's the contrast between having plenty and then suddenly having very little that has the most powerful effect on our brain. It's not just about being poor, it's the feeling of becoming poor that really rewires our thinking. So we've seen the neuroscience. Now let's bring it out of the lab and see how this plays out in the real world, in our jobs, our relationships, and even in life or death situations. This shift in the brain leads to something called the scarcity tunnel. When a resource like time becomes incredibly scarce, our brain focuses so intensely on that one thing that we start to neglect other critical things around us. This firefighter example is just chilling and so powerful. They're rushing to save lives, time is the ultimate scarce resource, and they tunnel in so hard on getting to the fire that they forget a basic, vital safety step for themselves. This isn't about being careless, it's a cognitive trap that scarcity sets for our brains. And you see this in the workplace all the time. Scarcity thinking is just plain toxic. It creates that if you win, I must lose dynamic. People genuinely struggle to be happy for a coworker's promotion because, in their mind, it feels like a personal loss. Their entire sense of worth gets tied up in comparing themselves to others. And when you have leaders who operate from that place, they create entire cultures of fear and paranoia that just kill teamwork.
But here's a really fascinating modern twist. A perceived abundance of options can actually lead to scarcity-like behaviors. Take dating apps, for example. As Susanna Hardwick points out, the endless scroll of potential partners can make any single connection feel less valuable. This can lead to things like ghosting, where real attention becomes the scarce resource because there's always, supposedly, another, better option just to swipe away. It's a really unexpected paradox.
So, okay, given all the negative effects of scarcity, the logical next step is, how do we escape it? The self-help world is absolutely filled with answers, so let's take a quick look at the most common advice for trying to build a more abundant perspective.
One of the biggest, most powerful tools you'll always hear about is gratitude. And the logic is pretty simple. By consciously focusing your attention on what you have, you start to train your brain to see the world through a lens of sufficiency instead of a lens of lack. It's really just about shifting your focus from the empty part of the glass to the part that's full.
And the advice goes even further, right? Keep a journal to actually write down what you're grateful for. Try to reframe challenges as opportunities for growth. Share what you have, your time, your knowledge, with this belief that it will flow back to you. The whole point of these exercises is to actively practice being happy for other people, to directly fight back against that zero-sum thinking that scarcity thrives on.
Okay, so problem solved. We just need to be more grateful, think more positively, and everything will be great, right? Well, the story is actually a lot more complicated than that. Let's peel back one more layer here. This is a really sharp, thought-provoking question that kind of challenges this whole simple binary we've been talking about. We just assume the opposite of a bad thing, scarcity, must be a good thing, abundance. But what if? What if both extremes can actually lead to the same dark place? And this brings us to something called the abundance paradox. It's this idea that scarcity and abundance aren't on a straight line, but are more like a horseshoe, where the two extremes actually bend back and start to look like each other. Both an extreme lack of resources and an extreme surplus of them can trigger the exact same behaviors, selfishness and greed. And yeah, there's research to back this up. In studies where they made resources like chocolates or money seem endless, people tended to take way more than they actually needed, which just led to waste. The all-you-can-eat buffet is the perfect real-world example of this. The perception of endless food doesn't always lead to satisfaction. A lot of the time, it just leads to overconsumption. Too much abundance can start to look an awful lot like greed. And this, right here, is maybe the biggest and most important critique of this entire mindset conversation. Telling someone who is facing actual, real-world, systemic scarcity like poverty or lack of opportunity that they just need to change their mindset is a profound misunderstanding of the problem. You know, focusing on your mindset is a privilege you have when you're not worried about where your next meal is coming from. This view often fails to address the real conditions that create scarcity in the first place. So we're left with this huge, crucial question. Is the answer to focus inward on our individual thoughts and our feelings? Or should we be directing our energy outward at fixing the broken systems that create these environments of scarcity for so many people? It's not a simple choice, and maybe the real answer is somewhere in bridging that gap between the two. And that is the thought I want to leave you with today.